Yeah. Speaking of that VMAs, that's the VMAs where they left Stevie Wonder on stage by accident. Everyone did. And then, like in commercial, you can see him just sitting there, and it's like, oh my god, who did we leave Stevie? Is it who's getting Stevie? You know, like I don't know. They actually showed part of it on TV because it was just there. It's like SNL in between sketches. Like, he's just sitting there. So,
woof.
Yeah.
Well, let's try to brighten it up a little bit.
Speaking of woof, there's a great dog story in this one, guys.
God bless. We haven't even started the show yet.
Segways.
Fuck it. Let's just go ahead and get started.
Hacking into the stock market, closing down a bank, fixing an election. It's all easy.
Right on.
What a bunch of trash.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Trash Movie Kings podcast. I am your host, Adam Edwards. Excuse me. Off to a great start. Joining me this week, JD Karpicki. JD, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great, guys. I was going to try to pull one out. Sorry. I was doing horrible before. Had some car issues, but then I heard some of the shit that happened in this movie. I felt a lot better about myself. This was fun. This is, you think you know Chuck Norris, but he's blonde in this one. Pretty much the same. But no, this really, I don't know what this movie was, but it made me feel like it gave me a complete 180 in how I was feeling. So thanks for pulling me out of that, guys.
That's good. Yeah, it also gave me a complete 180 on how I was feeling because before this, Giles and I were texting. By the way, Giles also with us this week.
Hey guys.
Joey, JP, and Apocalypse are all out on assignment. Giles is joining us, but Giles and I both separately were watching the Astros game, and we won big. We went up 2-0. Yeah. As a reminder to the listeners, we record these on Thursdays, so who the hell knows what happens by the time this episode comes out. But yeah, I was feeling pretty high when we started this. So one of my routines, it turns out, for the ALCS is to drink Martin. Sorry, I shouldn't say the actual brewery, but a specific beer because it gives the Astros good mojo. And I've had 6 of them before we started, and so I'm very bloated and burpy. And then I had a couple of Southern Stars during the show, so it's been brutal. But yeah, I was riding high, and then we watched this movie.
Yeah, I've been drinking my customary HEB Wild Red.
Not a sponsor. We tried with Wild Red.
Which not as wild as this film that we watched, but it does the trick. I was initially quite excited and pleased to be a part of this episode tonight because we did a Chuck Norris film, and there's a trash cinema stalwart there, but Silent Rage, perhaps not his best. I don't know.
You know what? If this is his best, I'm very concerned. Tonight, as Giles mentioned, tonight we watched 1982's Silent Rage, starring Texas's own Charles Norris.
Toot toot
toot toot. But yeah, we watched Silent Rage. It is a Chuck Norris. So I picked this one because I thought it's kind of billed as a horror film, and we're in October and we're trying to watch more horror films. And it kind of has some elements in there, but it to me, it didn't quite land. So the general premise is you've got an axe murderer, and Chuck Norris is your sheriff who is trying to save the day. I thought it was going to be a little more slashery. I don't know what this movie was.
Yeah, like this has always been on my, sort of trash cinema to watch list because Chuck Norris's film career is spotty at best, but he has some bangers. And it's Chuck Norris. He, like there's sort of some iconic Texan kitschy bag, like good baggage there that will make me pleased to try out different stuff that he starred in, especially early stuff like pre-Walker Texas Ranger Chuck. He did all kinds of stuff. So I've always been curious about this one, not just for Chuck, but also the fact that it did have sort of this sci-fi slasher bent to it, and also it was shot in Dallas. And I'm always happy to check out new movies I haven't seen before that were shot around Texas.
Some great Texas landmarks in this one too. Like that dirt road, remember?
Like that dirt road,
yeah,
like that
gully.
The nondescript bar. Yeah, like that's the thing. Like you don't okay, like it was shot in and around Dallas, but you don't see a lick of that. It could have been shot, on the back lot. And we do have some sci-fi slasher elements here, but the tone juggling isn't so great. And this movie is what, Adam? It was like an hour 40, an hour 45?
At least, yeah. It was brutal.
And it really should have been a tight 80. And if it were, I think we'd be a bit more peppy about it.
Yeah.
This thing drags on.
And you mentioned the story about Chuck Norris and the love scenes, right?
Yeah. So what, like as far as things in the unique pile, I've seen, various Chuck Norris movies where maybe there is a love interest, but it's always generally pretty perfunctory and not particularly steamy. This one, actually, we see two different love scenes with like some nudity, and he's giving smooches and drinking wine and rolling around in a hammock. And apparently, I guess grain of salt, because this is quite simply just me skimming the Wikipedia page, but apparently Chuck's fans, or like he heard, like after the fact, like, oh, they didn't much care for the fact seeing you, boning down, and he made a point to avoid such scenes.
It kind of shaped the rest of his career in a way. I mean,
I
don't know many of his 90s movies, but he, the Walker role is very like, wholesome.
Yeah, I think once you get into like the Walker era, which was kind of a family show, and like in a sense, like, it sort of had like that kind of like primetime conservative like morality to it. So like, and also too, like around the time of Walker, you're getting into movies like Top Dog and stuff, or like whatever it's called.
Oh yeah.
And Sidekicks, like the famous, the 90s kid favorite Sidekicks. So at a certain point, he's really kind of getting away from his sleazy canon films era and not really doing any type of love scene. So this might have been a one-off in that sense. And, it was kind of fun to watch. Sort of.
It was interesting to see him like that because, I brought that up because I feel like the whole like sci-fi or slasher or horror aspect of this was kind of watered down for the same reason. Yeah. They're like, well, what if he's an alien? It's like, nah. It's like, well, what if he's like a monster or something? I don't. Can you just fight him like a man? Like it just feels very like manly in a weird way. But he's just this. The bad guy's like an indestructible.
Right. It's kind of like a Frankenstein thing where they're, like this serial killer gets gunned down and they bring him back to life with their super science juice or whatever. And, and the monster runs amok. And, there are some good violent kills in this movie. But there's also like clearly there's, like a slasher influence here where we see lots of extended POV shots of our killer roaming hallways and homes and hospitals, which, on paper, I'm generally on board for that kind of thing. But these scenes drag on.
Yeah, they'll like center on the protagonist sometimes, or, one of the good guys as they're like sneaking around, and it takes them like a good minute just to sneak. And they're like, oh, this way, that way, this way, that way. And no matter how long they take, the killer's just right there and he like jumps out and he like does his little dance and then he goes after him. So Yeah, but congratulations on telling like a 5-second plot, by the way. That was pretty impressive.
Well, but that's all that this movie is.
That's what it is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's killer. You have a weird guy who wakes up very sweaty and kills people because he's so sweaty. Yeah. And then he gets killed. Which, by the way, the opening of this movie is probably a 3-minute oneer, if I had to guess. Like it's pretty lengthy.
It's like an Altman oneer. It's pretty impressive how they move that camera.
But it doesn't go anywhere or do anything.
That's my biggest gripe with the movie is like the shot was really impressive. Some of the camera work is very interesting.
Yeah.
For the 80s. Like Chuck Norris is having this talk, just face, perpendicular, we're facing them, and then like the camera just goes through their conversation onto like some sort of cop car or some other things that are happening. It's very interesting. But like the beginning, we open on the villain. Like there's like a 30-second Fred Olin Ray credit sequence
just on a stained glass window.
Glass window, and then the camera, somebody just picks it up off the tripod and points it down, and it's like, oh, there's the sweaty guy. What's he doing?
Yeah,
and he wakes up in this house, and there's kids running around playing like cowboys and Indians and laser tag, and they're just yelling at each other. One of the kids says, "You ain't shit."
Yeah,
one of my favorite lines to hear a kid say that. And they just yell, shit, 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 shit. He's waking up to these kids. There's this woman talking to him. He doesn't know any of these people. Like, we don't understand why this guy's there, why he's sweaty, why he's like zombie-like. He looks at her and she says something to him. She's like, kids, aren't they crazy? Well, you don't have to be rude. And then he just like, ugh, and he like leaves out the door. He starts chopping wood, like all, I can't do this. It's the weirdest opening, and they never explain it. They never go back to it. The whole point of the movie is that these crazy doctors, after this guy dies, are bringing him back to life, but they never explain why he was a crazy weirdo zombie to begin with, or who he knew at that house, or why he was sleeping there. Like, there's no explanation. That wasn't the plot. I'm just grabbing on that.
I mean, like, to kind of belabor the Frankenstein metaphor, Silent Rage feels like 3 movies kind of stitched together, because
100%.
Godfrey
Hill. You have this sort of Frankenstein angle, you have some very, like traditional slasher beats befitting 1982, and then you have scenes of Chuck as our sheriff, and like, his kind of goofy, overweight deputy. Well, more on him later.
Much more.
Like scenes of Chuck as the sheriff and his deputy, like getting into ruckus with local hicks at the bar. Like, there is one very good, like I would say like the best scene in the movie, because it stops and lets it be a Chuck Norris movie for a moment, where he's just kicking the shit out of this biker gang at the bar, and it's like, okay, like this is what a Chuck Norris movie feels like. And then it plods so much with the slasher stuff and the Frankenstein stuff that it'll be like 10-15 minutes of that, and then Chuck comes back onto the scene. It's like, oh right, this is a Chuck Norris movie, ostensibly. It's I would never like poo-poo the genre juggling to this movie attempt, because I always dig that kind of thing, but this one just didn't quite land, unfortunately.
Yeah, it just didn't quite get there. I mean, it's kind of all over the place. You've got, not to belabor it too much, but it's just, there's so many times where it's like, what the fuck are we doing? We're still walking down this hallway, or we're still having this weird conversation, or we're still doing whatever, and then cut to, like, I had like one thing written down that I don't even remember exactly what happened, but it was like smash cut to sex. And that was one of the most exciting things in the movie. And now that I think about it, it was after Chuck. God,
was that when he's riding home with her?
Yeah, he's riding home with her. He
sees this woman.
Some reason.
He meets this woman in the hospital. I think she slaps him. I think it's him that she slaps.
I think
and
so.
And then later on, she's talking with one of the doctors, and Chuck comes up like she's like, "Hey, who's this broad?" But they know each other. It's just like they're not acting like they know each other, or maybe they shot it out of sequence or something. But yeah, it's the classic jump cut, smash cut, whatever. That it's a literal smash cut. Get it? Okay, so but he gets in the car and he starts like touching her ear, and she's like, "Stop it! I'm not going to fall in love with you. Not this time. No way, no how." And then they cut to them having sex.
Yeah.
It's classic. Yeah.
That's like 10 minutes into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then an hour and a half more movie happens.
Yeah, like a lot happens in this movie, but nothing really happens in this movie. Sorry. I always quote. There it is. If you're not watching the visual podcast on Spotify or YouTube, please check it out. You're missing the little things.
You're missing the little things. Yeah, but it's basically just you've got this Deadpool Wolverine-esque super serum that's going into an axe murderer who then goes on a rampage for some reason and kills everybody except Chuck Norris throws him down a well.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
The end with a decent little like stinger, because like you expect like that, so like it pans down the well and you're expecting some type of like, as you thought, Adam, maybe like it'll have sort of like an X-Files ending of like glowing eyes in the dark, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we have our monster popping out of the water and then bam, freeze frame credits, which solid.
We've had that a lot lately. Actually, that's kind of how Las Vegas Bloodbath ends. It's kind of how, what's the last one with the cat that had the eyes?
Amityville 4.
That's right.
The evil escapes.
Yeah. It's pretty classic.
Yeah.
And also, can we mention how the guy dies like 3 times before this? Like, because he doesn't. I mean, like that's him falling into a well is probably the easiest thing for him to survive versus getting burned alive in the car crash.
Sorry, JD. I mean, go.
Oh, please. No, go ahead. I
was just going to say, like, the premise is like our stitched together Frankenstein monster has like Wolverine powers, right? Like he gets shot or he cut, like any type of wound heals itself. So at the very end, like he's shot at by Norris, and then he's trapped in an exploding car and he's on fire, and then he dives into the water.
Thrown out of a building.
Right.
Like 5 stories at least. Yeah.
And then finally Chuck throws him down a well. He's like, it's over. I was like, well, why?
Yeah.
And the movie
why that of all things?
He dies almost in every way possible because he gets like stabbed, he gets shot.
And
it's out of a window.
It's wild because these doctors spend so much time talking about this serum that they've created and how it's like they take a scalpel to his chest a couple of times and they're like, look, we cut him and he heals immediately. It's wonderful. It's great.
Yeah. But that doctor just looks, he doesn't even react. He's like, do it again.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's all he says.
But then at the end, there's this, or toward the end rather, there's this weird thing. The Frankenstein guy, the Frankenstein's monster guy, goes on his rampage and then shows back up at the medical lab for some reason. We don't really know why. Mm-hmm. And he's pretty banged up. He's been shot a couple times. He's been maybe stabbed a few times, that kind of stuff. And he shows up and for some reason he's back on the gurney. Like he's on the medical, like on the table. And the doctors are talking about him. They're like, look, every wound that he has is fatal. But he's survived them all. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching that and I'm like, then why the fuck is he on the table?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? This whole thing is that he can survive all of this shit. He can regenerate all of this stuff. But why is he? What are we? I try not to be too nitpicky about that, but come on, you built these rules and then you're breaking them like instantly. It's very weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird to me.
He's got the internal organs of a 20-year-old man.
Oh, God.
Right. Yeah, like this movie has some, I think, fun genre beats and like trashy ideas to throw out, but doesn't really commit to it. It all feels very just sort of like shruggy. Like, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
because you said the plot in like 5 seconds, but my notes are just endless. Like there's so much shit that happens in this movie I want to talk about, but it has nothing to do with the plot, and it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, okay. So the whole time when they bring up the serum, they just bring it out of nowhere. It's in this like jug, and he's like, the other process is taking too long. Let's speed it up. And he's like, but we've never tested it before. Well, there's first time for everything. And then the guy, the Serpico doctor, he's like, he goes, there's a vegetable who was a man who had a brain and a life. Are you? And then the other guy goes, are you going to give me all that shit about gods and souls and blah, blah, blah.
Oh.
You know, like, it's just so weird. We think that guy's going to be a good doctor, but they all just end up.
They all die.
Yeah.
It's a fucking weird movie, man. It's like, anyway, I guess, like, JD, did you have any other things in your notes that you wanted to go through? Because I don't even know how to attack this anymore. Like,
all right, well, Giles gave the really quick plot. Let's take a walk down this story. Let's talk about Chuck Norris's first line. So the guy
20
dies.
minutes into the film.
Yes, 20 minutes into the film. John Doe, or whatever, the monster, Frankenstein's monster, he's dead. And the Serpico doctor comes out and he goes, he has no bedside manner. He's like, sorry. He's talking to Chuck Norris. And he goes, sorry, he's dead. What do you want me to do? I don't know. And then Chuck goes, that's okay. Thanks, doctor. Puts his hat on and just leaves. But the first time, I'm sorry, we meet the deputy. I think he's talking about see, my notes are so freaking long I can't even find it. Here we go. Yeah, he's I don't know what he's talking about, but he says something about my motto is always
walk softly and carry a big stick.
yeah, he's like, good job. All right. And then moves on. Like Chuck Norris has one move. He's like, yeah, I wasn't really listening to that. Bam. And he just walks off. Yeah, I think it happens with the girl later too. She's like, I don't know how. I promised myself I wasn't going to do that, but I don't know how I feel about last night or what happened. You know what I mean? And he goes, no. That's it.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a few stray moments like that where it's like the movie is kind of almost knowingly, winkingly leaning into the fact that, even at his best, and and like fun to watch. Let's be honest here, Norris is a is a charisma vacuum, and
Yeah.
he just is. So I kind of like the fact the movie leans into him just sort of being just like this monosyllabic, just lunk.
Well, yeah, he could have been that. I wonder what would have happened if people were like, "Hey, those sex scenes? We want more of those." Would he have changed his career then too, like to more sex scenes?
Yeah.
You should do porn, Mr. Norris. Okay.
And even more than like his kind of weird back and forth romantic relationship in this movie, like if there's an emotional arc, it's this very, very goofy connection he has with his wildly unqualified deputy, who Norris talks to like a mentally handicapped younger brother.
Yeah.
It's and by the way, like I want to give credit here. We were talking about actor Stephen First.
Yeah.
Who is a very watchable, charming guy. Most famously, he is one of the pledges and Animal House. And here, he's playing sort of the stock character of like the goofy, overweight deputy. Like just like kind of a sweetie who's just sort of tripping over himself while his heroic sheriff is like actually kicking ass. And it is that, and he does that well, but
until
anytime this guy opens his mouth for more than 5 seconds, it's increasingly concerning that that he has been given a badge and a firearm. There's a particular sequence where
they're driving.
God, should we just play it? Because Jesus Christ, it's the saddest thing in the whole movie.
And play it. I mean,
this is what we were doing the whole time.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Like he's killed the dog.
Like, we're talking about the bit with the dog. He basically tells the sheriff about a time when he was little. He had a pet puppy and got him all dirty and wanted to clean him up. So first he's washing him in the toilet bowl and putting baby powder on, but now he's all wet. And I gotta dry him off. I don't want to put him in the clothes dryer because that might hurt the pup. So I put him in the deep freezer, and then I went out and had a good old time. And my mom found him later when she was getting the pot roast. And again, like to kind of give this awful story and this movie some credit, there are some funny cuts to Norris during this like little monologue, where he's just sort of like.
He's the audience surrogate in that moment.
The audience surrogate, and so like it's some pretty funny deadpan reactions from Norris, but instead of firing him on the spot like he should have, or at least, or like at least tenderly, driving to like a psychiatric clinic to get him some help. He's just like, well, don't worry. that's not gonna keep you from being a cop. We all get up to crazy shit when we're kids. It's just like, no, that's not the appropriate reaction to this horrible story.
And isn't he dismissive from the beginning? Like, doesn't he go like, yeah, boss, I got to tell you something real bad. When I was 6, I had this dog. And he's like, yeah, a lot of people have dogs, Charlie. Chill, I feel like he tries to dismiss it from the beginning.
Like, hold on, Chuck.
Is this another one of your stories? Oh, fuck. All right. Something else that's maybe equally troubling, at least at the present time, is like they have that bar brawl we talked about. Yeah. There's a bunch of people have taken over this bar, and the bartender is in the gallows. Like, they have put a noose around his neck.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's tied to, or if anything, but they're definitely holding him hostage, and they're going crazy. They're like burying their faces. There's all sorts of, I mean, the bar scene, I called it a rape den because it's basically just really disgusting, pervy guys that are just it's the most explicit, vulgar part because they're just pouring beer on girls and like rubbing against them. It's real gross, but like, yuck. So anyway, so all this is happening. There's like 20 guys in this bar. Chuck Norris, somebody just pulled a gun on him or something like that. Deputy runs out because this barmaid, or I think she's the owner, she comes up with her big boobs and she's like, ever seen any like this, big boy? And she flashes him. So he runs out and he like calls his friend on the telephone, or on the, I guess it was on the walkie-talkie.
Yeah, it's like on the short wave or something.
He's like, I think she really likes me. And then they go back inside, and Chuck Norris just fights everybody, and they go back to him, and he's like, I think I'm in love. And yeah, but please,
the biggest I ever seen.
Yeah, he says the biggest I ever seen, and they had tattoos on them.
Oh, okay. That's how I know. God said I would. That's what I would see.
Like, this is not good police work.
No, this motherfucker is like 2 lines short of saying MOON. That spells tits. Like,
he ran away to call someone to tell while this huge bar brawl was going on. It's pretty fucking.
It's fucking wild.
He admits to him that he's never been in a fight, like not a fist fight, not nothing. It's like, so did you not go to training? Like, if this guy at the end of the movie was like, hey, I stole this uniform off a cop like 20 years ago and nobody asked me any questions about it, and he just died like that would make total sense.
And then like, again, like going back just to the weird arc of this character. So towards the end, when our monster's kind of like on his final climactic, rage of silence, he's causing all sorts of havoc at the hospital, and our oafish deputy is tenderly caring for the love interest who's been traumatized. So it's like he's showing some, basic competence there. And, to give the character credit, he, goes out swinging, and he's doing his best to, have his first fight with, unfortunately, this super soldier monster, and our monster kind of gives him a big old bear hug, and I guess it's implied it kind of like just like cracks his insides. And so Norris finds him later. He's like, oh, hey, buddy. He's like, oh, he hurt me real bad, Sheriff. He hurt me real bad. I did my best. I tried. And he's like, it's okay. Like, Norris comes barely, like just up to the line of like calling him sweetie and kissing him on the cheek. It's actually
he's sweet. Like right here. He's like,
it's a legit nice scene. And I was kind of taken aback by seeing Norris being that like tender with a male character, because that's something you catch. It's a nice character bit. Mm-hmm. In this very silly movie, but it's kind of ruined by the fact that I know this guy deep froze a dog.
Yeah.
Well, that's what was so weird. It's almost like they got to that point of the movie and they're like, hey, this is going to be the big emotional scene. It's going to be good, right? And they're like, well, wait, this guy's kind of an idiot. And it's like, yeah, but he's a lovable. No, you remember that dog story, right? That's all we got. We just did dog story, never been in a fight.
Loves
I think that's it.
That's all we got.
I was like, oh shit, maybe we should have
tattoos on him.
Yeah, they tried to redeem him like kind of at the end, but they didn't do a good job of like setting that up, I guess. But yeah, it was a really nice moment though.
Sure. Yeah.
Holds him close.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, we could talk about random parts of this movie all night long, probably for longer than the runtime of the movie, which is shocking because it's a long movie for a trash movie. But let's go ahead and move on to let's just hit the highlights. Let's move on to favorite parts. Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll start with Giles. Giles, did you have any like one, maybe two favorite parts that really jumped out at you?
Well, again, as mentioned, you take your Norris films with a bit of a grain of salt. You kind of grade them on a curve. Of the ones I have seen, this one I would, I think it easily rates below like some of your heavier hitters like Invasion USA or Missing in Action. Norris has made some fun movies kind of in spite of himself, but he's also made some other ones that kind of fall into this category where it's like, well, this would be a decent one to kind of take a nap to or fall asleep to if you have insomnia and you just search his name on Tubi. But
that's how we found this movie.
Yeah, if nothing else, I always love watching Chuck Norris. Like walk into a diner or a bar, some local like either hick or cholo, like says something sassy, and then a brawl ensues. And this movie does have a very good bar brawl, so I enjoyed that just from a pure like action movie like standpoint. I thought that was like good action, good scene, good fighting. I enjoyed that. I not that it was the most like entertaining thing to watch, but just from kind of like a weird, wow, this movie went into like a strange place sort of direction. There's an extended scene where Ron Silver, who's like your doctor with a conscience, he goes home. His wife is an artist, and they have this long drawn out thing of like her apologizing that she didn't have time to make dinner because she got distracted with her pen. He's like, "Oh, it's fine, honey. Like, we'll order a pizza." Like, oh, and I'll bake one of my cinnamon cakes. No. People love you, and so they tell you that they love your cinnamon cake, but it's not very good. You should just buy a cinnamon cake. And it's like it's this out of nowhere like domestic like kind of like scene. It's not like funny or charming enough to be entertaining, but it's just like from like a pure like, okay, this movie went down this hole for a strange 15 minutes.
Well,
like,
and it's odd because like, up to that point, like Chuck Norris is just busting nuts left and right. Like his balls are empty. And then this guy's like, yeah, don't make your stupid cake because it's gross. Everybody likes you. And like, it's just a weird contrast.
It's very weird. But so like from that sense, I was like, okay, you know what? Because the rest of this movie is not very engaging or exciting, I will at least give it points for just taking strange detours. So if I'm going to pick two things, I enjoyed our extended bar brawl, which was solid, sturdy action. Just good classic meat and potatoes Chuck Norris stunt work there, and just our weird little dive into like a Cassavetes film starring Ron Silver for like a hot 10 minutes before, shit goes down. Anyways, that's what I got.
Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent. JD, how about you?
Well, I already talked about the kids saying, "You ain't shit." That was one of my favorites line readings. I didn't mention the deputy. He's about to go into the hallway to quote fight for the first time, I guess. And he's with the girl, like Chuck Norris's girl. And he goes, "All right, don't be afraid." And we're sure he's saying it to himself. Like,
Yeah,
absolutely sure he's saying it to himself. Still not my favorite part. There's also another. Okay, I promise I'm close to the end. There's a part where Ron Silver he goes down for a midnight snack, apparently, while his girlfriend's out, and he brings out this like massive salami, and he's cutting it with a machete, and like we have a POV of the Frankenstein's monster, and he stops cutting it for like a second. And then he's like, never mind. And they never really go back to that, but he's literally just cutting the salami and he like stops for a second. Sorry. Again, just a runner up. My favorite part is Deputy Dummy. For some reason, he walks past this equation on a chalkboard and it looks like a Goodwill Hunting like setup or whatever. And he like looks at it and he's like, "Oh, that's some cute squiggles," and then he walks past. Like, there's no, I don't know why they put him up to that, because he's just like, yeah. And then he goes past it, and he passes up the chalkboard for the fridge because he sees it. He's like, "Ooh," like it's just like a fat guy joke, like, "Oh, the fridge." But there's a biohazard sign on the front, so he's like, "I've seen that before. I'm not supposed to touch a hot stove," and like somehow he doesn't die from that. But I just thought that was so funny. That whole bit was so weird.
That whole sequence is basically the deputy going, "I wish I could read." Oh, Jesus.
Someday I'll get what those mean.
There ain't no pictures. I can't make head or tail of it.
Yeah.
I halfway thought he was going to accidentally erase it with his shirt or something, like while he's leaning up against.
Oh, and just like also wrote one more quick thing about the deputy, just with a movie that's unfortunately as dull as this one. You just take these little moments of weirdness where you can get them, but our first introduction to the deputy is like this cut over to him at a diner, and he's served 2 full meals of like a cheeseburger and like a plate of chips. So he gets 2 of those, which, okay, yeah, sure. Like he's like an oafish over deputy, fine. But then Norris sits down, our heroic sheriff. He's like, "Hey, Linda, I'll just have a hot tea."
Yeah, not a black coffee, nothing like that. Just a hot tea.
Hot tea. And then he puts right a few like local like dummies who were talking shit, and then he comes back, sits back down. He's like, "All right, I'll have my cheese omelet, hold the onions." It's like, this is like a uncharacteristically like sort of, I don't know, like cosmopolitan, sensitive, lovemaking Norris, and he never did that again.
No, the fans spoke.
To see that.
Yeah, I had 2 favorite parts. One was there's like this weird kind of like love/sex montage between Norris and the love interest. And midway through it, they're hanging out. Well, first of all, they're in bed. They're in this house by themselves. And they're in bed, and there's this tray of like well put together like food. There's like an apple that's like cut and it's presented very cleanly, and there's like a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses that are upside down. And it's like, who the fuck did this? Who put this together and put it on their bed? But then right after that, it cuts to them on a hammock, and they're swinging. And my God, it's like the idiot deputy just like was like, hey man, swing it. So like, yeah, I got it. And then just swung him as hard as he could.
To be clear, they're not fucking on the hammock. Like they're having like a nice like post-coital snuggle.
Yeah.
But that hammock is rolling. And
the hammock is moving 10 feet each direction. Like it's fucking
And it's a bird's
wild.
eye view. So it looks like we're in a hurricane.
Yeah.
Like, looks insane.
It's wild. And then my true favorite part, which will be no surprise to JD and Giles, is toward the end, one of the doctors, I don't remember which doctor it is, but he's sitting there in his chair and he's just crushed half a fucking handle of apple juice. And he's sitting there, and behind him, the monster walks up just outside of the door frame. I mean, 2 inches outside of the door frame. And the doctor goes, I've been expecting you. Please come in. And then the monster takes half a step forward and stops. There's no door to open. There's no way. Like, it's a door frame. It's like he moves 6 inches forward and he's like, yes, all right, we can have this conversation now.
Like this. You know, it was like almost sarcastic.
it was a fucking airplane joke is what it was. Oh my God. It was
beautiful.
It was beautiful. There's another bit, same woman, she's running through the house and she finds the artist, like the doctor's wife who's the artist. She's dead in the bed. And then she runs into the hallway and finds the doctor hanging on the back of the door. And she's just screaming. Like standing there next to this dead body screaming for about 15 seconds and then just decides, I guess I'll open this door now. And then just opens the door and runs out.
I will. And, I thought that was weird, but I think she's really, imagine she's seeing like 2 of her closest friends just completely dead. And she's actually, I think she's playing that shock up or something. Because even when she's hysterical when Norris is trying to talk to her, and I guess you would be. But I don't know. It seems like a lot of people are overthinking their motivation.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Could be. But yeah. Anyway, were there any other parts that anybody wanted to bring up?
I mean, that hanging out part is pretty cool because it's the actual actor and he's like mouth open, eyes like completely wide, and she closes the door. So he's on the inside of the closet and she closes his door. And he does a pretty good job, but at the very end, he like looks at where he's going. Like, it's just very end. It's pretty good.
Yeah, Ron Silver always commits.
Yeah,
he's good. All right, well, I guess with that, we can go ahead and move on to the bees.
Ooh.
A decent amount for this one. Yeah. So I have, we have blood, we have a Blazer, a Chevy Blazer, we have a blonde Norris, which was weird to me. I never really knew Chuck as a blonde, but he's blonde in this one. Yeah. We have blasts, we have boobs, we kind of have a Blade, There's that guy in the bar, and he like has it tucked into his waistband, but we never actually see the blade.
No, I'm calling it a Bowie knife for a B, but
We have lots of berry blue jeans. We have bikes and bikers, belt buckles, beer, boat, motor. We have a fantastic barroom brawl. We have a biohazard sticker. We have a burning body. We haven't had one of those in a long time, but that was a good one to come back. And then a couple of honoraries. We had 2 different guys through glass. We had one guy that got thrown through the glass of the cop car. And then at the end, our Frankenstein's monster got thrown through the glass of the skyscraper and out.
I will add bumbling deputy to that list.
Bumbling deputy. Very good. Anything else?
Burgers, double.
There you go.
Blonde Norris, I'll watch all day long.
And to give another honorary B designation, if you look at the end credits for this movie, you get to the section towards the end of the credits where it's just kind of listing various extras that you see in the big barroom brawl. And a few of the ladies who we see are credited as, let me get this right, biker mamas at the bar.
Biker mamas.
We got biker mamas.
That's fun.
And unfortunately, not a small amount of boredom.
Yeah, that's true. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the ratings. Giles, why don't you start us off on this one?
I apologize. I feel like I ask this every time because my memory is
out of 5.
Out of 5. Thank you. Oh, 3 out of 5. 2.5 out of 5. You know, like I said, I grade Chuck Norris movies on a bit of a curve. There's like top of the pile for me is like Invasion USA, which is so much fun. That's like, you know, the oftentimes very wooden Norris being like deployed well. The action's fantastic. You would also have like Missing in Action thrown in there. Some late 70s stuff I enjoy, like Breaker Breaker. But this is on more of just the kind of just like dull side of things, and you do get a lot of dull movies in Norris's oeuvre. Having said that, there are enough like little funny or interesting or just colorful character bits in the margins that certainly made this watchable and a fun time and like a fun night to, you know, to spend with you fellas. But you can definitely do a lot better than this. But, you know, I'll give it a polite 3 out of 5.
Okay. JD.
Oh man,
I felt like you were a little higher on this one than we were, but I could be wrong.
I was, but I'm trying to think. Okay, so Amityville Horror, if you haven't watched it yet, I gave that 3.5 bags, and I didn't say this in the episode, but it was like 3 bags. I was like on the fence whether it was a trash film or just like kind of an okay movie, but the half was Patty Duke carrying the goddamn thing, like poking her head out of the third bag and like, you know, leaning it forward a little bit. This one's different. I wanted to give it 4 off the bat, but the lulls are pretty long. Like it's a little dull, but as a trash movie, like if you've never seen Chuck Norris other than Walker, Texas Ranger, and you watch this, you're just gonna like, I don't know, you're gonna flip out. I think this is a really fun movie to watch with your friends and just discover this new side of Chuck Norris. It's almost like Italian Stallion with Stallone or something. Not that it's a porn, but it's just like, what the fuck? He's in bed with some boobs? Like shit. You know, I don't know. I think it's Norris being so just oozing sexuality that kind of like, it's so weird, like to see him in this, like, and all the other crazy batshit stuff that happens. What, Giles, you gave it a polite 3?
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Man, because it's nothing like, oh, this is tough. I'm gonna have to give it a 4.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. The rage was silent but deadly. That didn't mean anything. But yeah.
All right. So we have 4 from JD, 3 from Giles. There were parts of this that I liked. There were good and bad parts of it that reminded me of Shakma, which I really love. Where it's like you've got some really good character bits and some good, I don't know. I love Shakma, but Shakma's downfall is that towards the end of Shakma, there's a lot of really bad pacing, right? It's like they made a 50-minute movie and they were like, well, we need another 30. And then they just kind of fucked it up. This, I feel like they made a 30-minute movie and they were like, we need another 70. And so it's the pacing is so rough for me. Like this could easily be a broadcast hour episode of Walker, Texas Ranger, but instead they made it an hour and 40-minute film. I do love Chuck boning down. That's something I'd never seen before.
Not just boning down, but like boning down with romance, or at least this movie, attempt at romance.
He's smooching.
Yeah.
Like he's kissing, he's stroking, he's caressing. Like, come on. He's a good lover from what I can tell. But ultimately it didn't really do much for me. So I'm going to be a little harsher on this guy. I'm going to give it a 2 bagger. Which gives us an average of 3, which I think that's about right.
That's where it should have ended up, I think. Yeah.
I'll put it this way. I already have Missing in Action queued up here. So I'm just going to fall asleep to that.
There you go.
Was he in Delta Force? Is that movie? Okay. I wasn't sure if I remember that right, but yeah.
If you haven't seen it, I would heartily recommend Invasion USA, which I think you can also watch on Tubi. That's, in my mind, that's tops with regards to early Norris. If you are a Walker fan, check out Lone Wolf McQuaid, which plays like a feature-length Walker pilot. Just a bit more violent, and the enemy is David Carradine, I believe. So,
nice.
That's a fun one.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be 3 bags of trash on average from the Trash Movie Kings for 1982's Silent Rage, starring Chuck Norris. I have been your host, Adam Edwards. Joining me this week, Chris Giles. Thanks for joining us. And JD Karpicki. JD, by the way, if you're listening to this episode tonight, if you're listening to it the day it comes out tonight, we have bowl cuts. JD has bowl cuts at Rec Room Arts. What time is that? 8:00?
Doors open at 7:30. Shows at 8. It's after the Astros game if they needed a game 6.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. Oh, I heard they won it in 5. Awesome. I don't know. You're listening to this now, so who knows what's going to happen. But every time we have a bull cuts in October, it's fucking Astros, which is great. I love the Astros. Hope they win soon.
Yeah.
Anyways, 25th.
Yeah, it's a great fucking show. Please come out and watch it if you're in the Houston area. It's a good time. Do you know who's going to be there, JD?
Yeah, it's Halloween time, guys. So we're doing a costume contest. We're doing like games and spooky movies. So it's going to be Dallas Box. We have Kira Boldraghini, who's a new filmmaker in Houston. She's amazing. And JP DeStefano, who he directed Halloween Night, which was a fan film that got a lot of attention on YouTube. He also was involved in Scream Legacy, which just crossed 1 million views on YouTube. So we're going to talk to him about that. And this is going to be a fun, spooky, stupid time. We've got some sketches and stuff. So don't miss it if you can come out. Like, get over there. I don't know. It's 1 o'clock. You're watching this at premiere time. Come see us at 8 o'clock in the Rec Room.
Yeah. Please do battle the Minute Maid traffic and make it to Rec Room. It's worth it. We'll be there. I don't know about Giles, but like I know I'll be there. JD will be there. Joey will probably be there. But yeah, so see us tonight at Rec Room Arts for bowl cuts. Thank you to Southern Star Brewing Company for giving us the beer for tonight's episode. Thank you to everybody who's listening and watching for your time. Give us a follow on all social media. Shoot us an email, trashmoviekings@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Thank you guys for giving up your Thursday nights, Friday mornings, and we will see you next time.